Welcome to episode 17 of the Believe in Balance podcast. My name's Dave Dansereau. I'm your host, and unlike other previous episodes, there's no music jingle preview to the episode. I'm just going to jump right in because this is going to be a complement or the audio for an article I wrote earlier this week on my Achieve Balance Substack entitled A Physical Therapist's View on How to Help Seniors Achieve Balance with Tech-Enabled Assessment Tools. And what I'm doing in this episode is sharing my takeaways from the Digital Frontiers and Frailty Opportunities for Early Detection and Clinical Action workshop I attended. So that was last week, and I had the opportunity to attend this workshop, which was a hybrid type workshop hosted up in Newton, Mass by the Massachusetts AI and Technology Center, also known as MassAITC. And this workshop brought together clinicians, engineers, researchers, and innovators with the goal to reimagine how we detect, monitor, and ultimately act on frailty in older adults. So the following is my review and takeaways from the workshop, and you also will link to the article as well. Side note, as a physical therapist deeply invested in preserving independence, functional mobility, and strength across the lifespan for my clients, what struck me the most was how consistently movement, exercise capacity, balance, integrity, and strength emerged really as central themes in every session during this workshop. Not just outcomes to measure in a lab setting, but as actionable targets for intervention. So why frailty matters and why exercise should be front and center. So frailty isn't just a buzzword. It's a clinical syndrome associated with vulnerabilities to falls, reduced mobility, loss of strength, and increased risk of hospitalization and mortality. As I learned in this workshop, quote, by 2060, nearly a quarter of the U.S. population will be over the age of 65, and millions more are expected to develop frailty, with balance and mobility decline being amongst the most visible and functionally impactful manifestations, end quote. So across all the plenary sessions, from defining frailty to candidate measures for digitization and new frontiers in measuring functional reserve, presenters underscored that strength, balance, and physical reserve aren't just nice to have. They are vital signals of resilience. Objective digital measures paired with functional assessments can help us spot declines early and intervene before independence is lost. So here's some more highlights from the sessions and discussions I want to dive into. So if we look at frailty by the numbers, we saw leading experts reminded attendees that frailty isn't inevitable, but is predictable and modifiable, especially when we capture subtle signs of decline early and connect them to investigations like strength training, balance exercises, supportive nutrition, and mobility programs. There was a broad agreement that clinicians need scalable, reliable digital tools that patients can use seamlessly in clinic and at home to alert us to changes in function long before catastrophic events like falls occur. It appears we haven't arrived yet at defining frailty clearly, but several models are emerging, including the several discussed, like the frailty phenotype, along with a similar deficit accumulation model outlined in session 1, presented by Dr. Dae-Hwan Kim of Marcus Institute of Aging Research in Boston. In fact, in session 2, we looked at measuring frailty as getting towards what's under the skin and using digital measures to learn and monitor health like we currently do in the sports framework that already has many commercial wearables marketed to athletes to monitor performance. The idea of building a similar age-adjusted stressor recovery action loop from sports performance applied for frailty was discussed, and I thought that was a brilliant way of putting it. Dr. Megan Hushan-Sheets, a gerontologist affiliated with the University of Chicago, presented her team's research to engage patients in proactive digital frailty assessment and exercise interventions. We then went on to talk about functional reserve and digital metrics. In session 3, New Frontiers in Measuring Functional Reserve by Dr. Kaylin McRae of Harvard Medical School and the Brigham discussed how digital biomarkers from gait speed to center-derived movement patterns can act as proxies for underlying physiological reserve. These metrics help identify people whose strength or balance is deteriorating even when standard clinical tests appear normal. Physically, this emphasizes what we know in therapy. Small changes in muscle power, postural control, and balance confidence often precede big declines in mobility and independence. This session really hit home for me as a stroke survivor, as I have advocated for most of my career to deploy wearable sensor-based digital health technologies, or SDHTs, to help better manage and monitor stroke recovery trajectories and intervene early in possible decline. Dr. McRae also happened to lead the Apple Heart study, which I have been enrolled in since my PFO closure back after my stroke, and my motivation at that time was to try to share and learn about this early research using the potential of the Apple Watch in remote clinical trials. We then moved on to the spotlight on startups and demonstrations, and this was really a chance that I could dive in and get my hands on some of the tech. During the posters and technology demonstrations, several companies stood out to me as a physical therapist. I appreciated their creativity and potential to transform frailty assessment, management, and senior fitness and rehab, especially through the critical strength, balance, recovery, and mobility lenses. So the first one I want to highlight and spotlight is Catch You Before You Fall. Catch You Before You Fall is built by Jet Worldwide Enterprises, and it's a mobile app that offers a quick, quantifiable fall risk assessment based on a multi-sensory integration and reaction time task performed on a smartphone. It is intended as an adjunctive tool intended to provide information to the clinician for interpretation and decisions on patient care. Rather than relying on subjective recall or observation alone, Catch You presents a standardized reaction test on a smartphone app that captures how well an older adult integrates visual and tactile inputs, critical for balance and adaptive movement, and provides a tailored report to support fall prevention. From a PT standpoint, Catch You represents an exciting evolution in early detection. By identifying deficits in multi-sensory processing and reaction speed, both of which correlate with balance and muscle coordination, clinicians can triage individuals earlier into strength and balance programs, potentially preventing the cascade of decline that leads to falls. I've long been an advocate of and written about how we start screening balance much too late in life, and I often said it's like your mechanic telling you you don't need to change your oil until you get over 70,000 miles. So in addition, on this spotlight, I enjoyed meeting the founder and chief scientific officer, Dr. Jeanette Mahoney, and hearing the inspiring story of her why behind her startup and her mission and dedication after her grandmother's passing. The second spotlight is Sunday Health, and they are using vocal biomarkers in wearable earables. At the demo, Sunday Health's vocal biomarkers platform demonstrated how voice analytics can passively track cognitive and emotional states linked to holistic frailty, particularly cognitive fatigue and mental health changes that often influence mobility and exercise engagement. What makes Sonde especially intriguing is its potential to integrate with broader assessments of physical resilience. Cognitive load, stress, and mental fitness all affect motivation, gait adaptability, and recovering capacity. The third spotlight is on SOND Dream Buds. Their focus is on measuring sleep, recovery, and physiological resilience. I learned from speaking with Yadid Eisenberg, who is the CEO and co-founder of SOND, that they are making notable strides in understanding sleep quality through its earbud-based technology called Dream Buds. They're designed to unobtrusively monitor sleep patterns and deliver adaptive auditory stimulation to support restorative sleep. From a frailty and fall prevention lens, SOND's approach is particularly compelling because, 1, sleep quality directly influences neuromotor performance and reaction time. 2, poor sleep impairs strength, recovery, and balance confidence. And 3, continuous in-ear monitoring enables real-world longitudinal sleep assessments, or if you will, like a mobile sleep lab in your own home. So by leveraging ear-worn sensors, SOND avoids many of the adherence challenges seen with traditional wearables and potentially could offer a sleep lab in your own home, as I mentioned. The ability to capture sleep architecture, disturbances, and recovery trends over time may provide clinicians with actionable data to identify individuals at heightened risk for functional decline before mobility deficits or falls occur. So from a PT perspective, gaining insight, improving sleep quality may enhance the effectiveness of exercise and rehabilitation interventions, amplifying gains in strength, balance, and overall functional capacity. As a personal sidebar, and from the stroke survivor lens, and someone who also suffers with tinnitus or tinnitus as a late effect of my stroke, I am intrigued how SOND's insights and technology may potentially help me with my own struggles to improve my sleep quality. I was impressed with DreamBud's quality and comfort, and after exploring the app, have pre-ordered a pair and will report back in another article on this topic. I'm one that uses the Apple Watch regularly, but don't want to have my Apple Watch on me while I sleep. And, I often use that for recharging time. We know some of the limitations right now on the Apple Watch for that reason. Spotlight number 4, Neurosantis' Neurovesta bioelectronics for balance restoration. Neurosantis, through its Neurovesta platform, impressed me with its dual approach. Diagnostic sensing of vestibular and neuromotor balance impairments paired with a non-invasive bioelectronic treatment protocol aimed at restoring balance function via gentle electrical vestibular stimulation. The Neurovesta device quantifies balance deficits using wearable sensors and then delivers a therapeutic stimulation that induces neuroplastic gains and balance control, something especially meaningful for older adults with declining vestibular function that contributes to unsteadiness and falls. For a physical therapist, this technology is exciting not because it replaces exercise, but because it may augment traditional balance and strength training by improving the underlying neuromotor capacity that supports safe movement. I heard CEO and co-founder John Ralston present during a previous MassAITC workshop, and also met him briefly during the workshop's poster and device demonstration breakout session. I am intrigued and hope to follow up with him soon on how I might be able to get some of my clients with balance and vestibular disorders access to his clinical trials. What this all means for PT practices. As a PT, the take-home message from this workshop was clear. 1, strength and balance aren't isolated outcomes. They are dynamic signals of whole body resilience. 2, digital health tools can quantify nuanced changes in mobility, reaction time, and neuromotor control long before conventional assessments detect them. We currently measure athletes' performance this way, and now it is time to think of our seniors as longevity athletes too. Interventions that preserve strength, enhance motor control, and support mobility must be paired with early detection to delay frailty progression and preserve independence. That's the third point. These technologies, as I mentioned, from Ketchu's reaction-based fall risk assessment to Sonday's vocal biomarkers to Neurosantis's balance restoration platform, offer promising pathways to bring precision into how we screen, monitor, and intervene for frailty in older adults. My bottom line, the Digital Frontiers in Frailty workshop provided a glimpse into the future where physical therapists are empowered with rich, objective insights into strength, balance, and functional reserve, allowing us to intervene earlier, personalize care plans, and advocate for interventions that help people stay stronger, steadier, and more independent for longer. With continued collaboration between clinicians and technologists, tools like those showcased at this workshop could soon become part of our routine care, helping us measure what matters most to our clients and help our patients with age with strength, agency, and mobility. What I learned over lunch break, too, speaking with leading engineers and researchers at my table, representing research labs at surrounding Boston University, MIT, Worcester Polytech, or WPI, as well as UMass, is that these professionals, these engineers, and these researchers need us as PTs and clinicians as much as we need them to develop and deploy these technologies. Many I spoke to admitted they lacked the clinical know-how from a rehab workflow perspective, and they also have difficulty recruiting senior patients, especially those with more complex neurological disorders like Parkinson's disease, stroke, and MS. And they want to be able to apply their early technologies to them in these research pilots, but they often many of these clinical trials struggle for recruitment because they don't have a pathway to help recruit or get feedback from clinicians. This has been something that I'm going to follow up with in much more detail in my upcoming book, Closure After Stroke, because I have some experience working sort of as a liaison between the clinical side or the clinical education and research side, as well as the industry, connecting them into research institutions and labs to try to build products that will serve the clients that were brought up today in this workshop. So more on that in another post and in another podcast episode. But I really see this is our job as physical therapists to help engage these populations and facilitate collaborations between all parties. Ultimately, it will help patients and those seniors that we serve. And in part, it is the motivation for me taking the time to write up this detailed report about it here as a place to start. But I want you to chime in and provide your feedback, please, below, whether you're listening to this on your favorite audio player, on Spotify, or where you can find us all on Apple as well, or if you're just listening to the audio version of this post on Substack, please chime in. If this resonates, leave a comment, message me directly, but most importantly, share. And I'll be back in the next episode with more articles and tips on how to achieve balance. So for now, this is David signing off. Until next time, stay well. Keep the faith, stay on your feet, and keep moving forward.